If anyone were to watch the TV news right now, one thing that's been on the news a lot, certainly be tonight, is that Colorado has, well, because of I think they've made the push for legalizing marijuana and such has really moved forward in Colorado. There's something that we need every person who's interested in such things to be aware of, that it is not to assume that people aren't would be logical, because it would be it would to this is one of those things where we should assume people are not aware of this. Okay, if you're concerned about like human rights and stuff like that, like violence towards people in repressive societies, and people who are murdered from the really human rights issues, please listen to this, okay? Because I want this has to enter into the discussion about legalizing marijuana. The country of Uruguay has said something to the UN, which will be true of many other South American countries, but it will sound very strange when I say it. But we'll explain why very quickly. Uruguay has told the United Nations that they simply will be unable to live up to any of their human rights obligations under the Declaration of Human Rights if marijuana remains illegal in the United States. Repeat that. There's be incredible human rights violations that are trying to be stopped all the time. They've simply stated, because the UN knows what they mean, and and sectors like that they do, they will not be able to abide by any of the human rights regulations if marijuana remains illegal in America. The reason for that is this: because of these kind of what are called free trade agreements that have been made, that are they're harmful to South America generally. But here's the thing: because they've displaced thousands, and I think I should say millions of the if you look at probably all of Latin America, who were farmers, okay, because they're displaced by, first of all, the existence of we subsidize an agro sector, and then the free trade agreements broke open the markets in Latin America. We made way for it with a lot of violence, but what it did is it put millions of farmers into starvation because they can't compete with a giant U.S. corporation that has subsidized with our tax dollars to reduce the crops of their price to so low. Wait, but we've been asking. They've been saying for a long time to Americans and anyone that they need commodity stabilization programs to help them as farmers so they can eat. If there were commodity stabilization programs put in, they wouldn't be starving, and they could still earn their living farming. They're completely ignored. Desperate people who have no way of living except one thing, they can look for something to grow for which there's still a stable market. And because marijuana is illegal here, it's not made by like agribusiness. So what they do is they do things like grow marijuana. It's a way to eat. They can farm anything. They're farmers, but under these agreements, it's the only thing they can grow. What we're calling the drug war is, follow along. Okay, when we install these dictators all over Latin America and put bases there to make way for this, why do we have to do all that to make way for selling agro products? Well, the reason is it's causing so much harm that naturally there'll be indigenous resistance, of all kinds against such a thing as starving out all these farmers. So what we're calling the drug war is actually something that our CIA does in concert with paramilitaries of dictators that we put in power to murder anyone and fumigate anyone. And we claim what we're doing is these people are growing drugs. The reality is, whether they are or not, what we're doing is covert counterinsurgency against those who would organize to stop murderous trade agreements. Okay, so what they're saying is, look, because marijuana is illegal, with the people in the higher sectors that are economically awake explain to the UN, and this would be true in so many South American countries, that because marijuana is illegal in the United States, it's the one thing that the farmers can grow not to starve, because there's still a market for it. But the problem is, anyone who does try to do that, and if they're doing that, they'll be fumigated and murdered. And because we take our orders from Washington under threat of violence violence or removal of the own government. We have to work with your CIA and our own paramilitaries to basically kill our own people. It's created that situation where we violate the human rights agreements that we would like to abide by, but we have to take our orders from Washington and use our own paramilitaries against the population who naturally would be in resistance to what you've done with these agreements. Okay? So there's actually a human rights dimension to why marijuana has to be legal in this country. There's actually a human rights violation involved. That information, follow along. If you may need to watch the video more than once, it's crucial to anyone to understand a dimension of the legalized marijuana movement that may be unfamiliar.